What's up guys, my name's Braden. Before we start this video, I just want to let everyone know that this is my first video that I'm recording. So excuse me if I'm a little awkward or I make mistakes. I'm still trying to get used to this. I'm just going to be myself. If you guys don't like it, you could just skip the video and go to a different one. Just know that there might be some cussing or there might be some stuttering. I'm just going to be myself or else this video is never going to get made. So today we're going to be talking about something called a dopamine detox. I see a lot of people talking about this. It's very effective for what it's trying to do, but there seems to be a lot of misconceptions about why and how it works. So the first thing you need to know about dopamine is that it is toxic to the brain. That's one. It's going to be important later. Two, that its main function in the body is movement. It actually controls your body's muscle functions, and that's why people with a dopamine deficiency called Parkinson's disease, they shake a lot, they can't move properly. And third, it's drive and excitement, and it's what gets you out of bed in the morning to achieve your goals. So dopamine is a good thing, but like I said, it's also toxic, which is going to be important for the rest of this video. With you guys is I want everybody to understand the way dopamine works in the brain. It's quite simple. I have this whiteboard here. So before all you internet scientists get all crazy in the comments and bitch and whine and say, oh, that's not what it really looks like, I'm making this really simple. I know this isn't what it really looks like in the brain, so I'm just going to draw it out for you right here. So hope you guys can see this okay. These are neurons in the brain. So this is called the synapses in the middle right here. This is pre-synapsis, post-synapsis. So what happens is dopamine goes from the pre-synapsis through the synapsis to the post. And little things right here, dopamine gets caught up in these little things. These right here, little dopamine's getting in there. Those are the receptors. This right here are receptors that latch on to these dopamine particles. So remember when I said dopamine was toxic? When you have too much dopamine getting transmitted in the synapse, these receptors tend to downregulate because the brain wants to protect itself against a toxic state. It doesn't want to be in a toxic state. The brain says, okay, we're getting too much of this toxic chemical. We're going to have to downregulate the receptors to protect ourselves. So what it does, it downregulates these receptors. What's the problem with that? Well, these receptors are the reason why you feel dopamine. Just because you release it into the synapse doesn't mean you're going to feel it. It has to latch onto these receptors, and the receptors have to feel it. And when you put too much into these receptors, your brain downregulates them and reduces your ability to feel the dopamine transmission. So what does that mean? When you engage in these acts that raise dopamine, whether it be drugs, video games, sugary food, pornography, very loud stimulating music, there's a bunch of stuff in this day and age that just never existed that produces an unnatural amount of dopamine. Your brain has to downregulate to protect itself. Now what people think actually happens here, and the reason why they do a dopamine detox, is because they think that they aren't producing enough dopamine, that they wasted it all. So they do a dopamine detox and get rid of every dopaminergic activity that they do in hope to build up their dopamine stores. And that's just not the case. I mean, you could run out of dopamine, but you produce it all the time. If you stop producing it or your body lowered production, you would get Parkinson's disease. Now, if the brain lowered endogenous production of dopamine to protect itself, the issue is that back then, if it lowered endogenous production, that wouldn't be conducive to survival, right? Because not being able to move properly is a lot less conducive to survival than potential long-term neurotoxicity. So it makes sense why the body does this, why evolution's done this. Why is dopamine toxic to the brain? It's fucking stupid, but it's just the way it is. And unfortunately, the brain and evolution never had time to adapt to this because all throughout history, we never had these things that spiked this neurotransmitter up so high like we do today. Here's what I'm trying to say. Dopamine transmission goes up. Sensitivity to dopamine goes down. Now, there's a middle ground right here. Let's just, well, I mean, that's hypothetical, right? So here's your middle ground, right? The more this goes up, the lower this goes. So if you're always doing drugs and watching porn and listening to music and playing video games and all this, your dopamine transmission is going to be up here all the time. So over time, your sensitivity is going to go down here. Now, when you stop all those hedonistic activities, guess what's going to happen? Your dopamine transmission is going to be normal, but your sensitivity to it's going to be down here. So now instead of being at the normal baseline here like you were at first, now you're here and you feel like shit. Wonder why. So what do you do then? What downregulated these receptors in the first place? Too much dopamine transmission. So you do this, but the opposite. So dopamine transmission goes down, sensitivity goes up. So what do I mean by that? That means completely stopping all the hedonistic activities that you're doing right now. Stop the drugs, stop the sugary foods, stop the video games, unless it's something that's productive and healthy, like maybe cooking whole foods and eating it. If that gives you pleasure, go ahead and do that. Or going to the gym and working out. If going to the gym gives you pleasure, don't just stop going to the gym to hopefully get your sensitivity up, because working out actually makes you more sensitive to dopamine. Let me explain that real quick. Think about holding a box, right? Really heavy box. Now think about putting it down and picking up a lighter box. That box, the lighter one, feels like nothing after you picked up the heavy one. So when you're in the gym, you're suffering, you're working hard, you're not having a good time when you're under the weights, lifting hella weight, going to failure, you're not having a good time. And then afterwards, you're like, oh, man, I feel fucking good right now. Why do you think that is? You just did something hella hard, and then now you're sitting down chilling, and that's easier than sitting down chilling before you went to the gym. It's like the box comparison. When you do something really hard, the after effect's going to feel even better than normal. So those are the two things you can do. You can lower all your hedonistic activities and engage in things that are mentally and physically difficult. That's how you're going to get sensitive to dopamine again. So let's say you do this for 30 or 60 days. You live a virgin ass freaking lifestyle and you don't do shit except go to the gym and cook food and work and sleep. Unfortunately, that's what you have to do to get these receptors upregulated. So what do you do afterwards? Well, now you could feel joy again. Great, you're not anhedonic anymore. Now you have to set new habits. So habits take 2 to 3 weeks to form, right? So I suggest doing the things that you want to learn to enjoy while you're detoxing dopamine. So don't wait till the end and then start doing these new things that you want to do, because then you're just going to go into your old ways because you have nothing to scratch your freaking itch for hedonism anymore. You got to replace these old shitty habits that got you into the bad place in the first place with new habits that actually provide some sort of benefit to your life, right? Sometimes people get caught in a place where things just don't feel good anymore. They drink their coffee, they listen to music, they do a drug they like to do, they do all these things that usually bring them pleasure, and it's just not doing it for them anymore. They just don't feel good. That's called anhedonia, and anhedonia is the lack of ability to feel pleasure. A lot of people think this is due to running out of dopamine. That's just not the case. You don't run out of dopamine. If you did, you would have Parkinson's disease. What happens is that your receptors, they get down-regulated, like I just explained. So you upregulate your receptors, you feel better, you replace the old habits with new habits, and you're happy again. Normal things bring you happiness. That's the key to happiness in this world. You keep these receptors sensitive, everything feels better and you're happy. You're happy doing normal shit. You don't have to get fucked up with your friends and go fuck some bitch to feel good. You can just feel good going outside in the sun and drinking a sparkling water. That feels just as good once you get these receptors sensitive. This is the secret to a happy life right here. And that's why I'm here giving you guys this message, even though I'm super nervous to go on camera. I really don't want to post this, but this is something that you guys need to know, and I feel like is going to be a big benefit to society if this message gets out. If everybody had these receptors upregulated, everyone would be happy doing normal stuff. You know, the world would be a better place. Alright, so I want to show you guys this Parkinson's study that I found. I don't want to act like I'm trying to steal this person's shit. So this is what the study's called. Authors right here. So this is kind of proving that what I'm saying isn't bullcrap. Like what I'm saying is true and is going to explain the phenomenon of these receptors down-regulating. Because science knows when you pound these receptors, they get down-regulated. They don't know why. So I'm going to show you that it's true these receptors get down-regulated when you pound them with dopamine. And then I'm going to tell you why it happens. That's what science doesn't know. This is all, they don't know why this happens, but I think I know why it happens. So we're just going to skip all the way to the bottom. Feel free to read this study. It's a really good study. Conclusion. Our study suggests the following. The dopaminergic 2 receptor downregulation in late-stage Parkinson's disease is mainly secondary to anti-Parkinson medication and could be reversible after long-term drug withdrawal. So the downregulation of these receptors is caused by anti-Parkinson medication. What is anti-Parkinson's medication, you may ask? It's dopaminergic medication. You're giving yourself exogenous dopamine. Same thing that, well, not the same thing, but when you watch porn and do drugs, you're releasing a bunch of endogenous dopamine, right? Dopamine that's created inside of you versus outside of you. Now, when these levels are really high, whether it's endogenous or exogenous dopamine, it still has the same effect on the receptors. So when you pound these receptors with dopamine, they downregulate, and it could be reversible after long-term drug withdrawal. It says it right here, guys. If these receptors are downregulated by all your hedonistic activities, if you get rid of those activities and starve these receptors of dopamine, why can't they upregulate? It's like you're taking away the drug, except this time, instead of an anti-Parkinson's drug, it's a porn drug, it's a sugar drug, it's a drug, right? It's a loud, stimulating music drug. So if you starve these receptors, they'll upregulate. It says it right here, guys. Proof that if you starve yourself of dopamine, it will upregulate. So in off-drug, late-stage Parkinson's disease patients, an upregulation of dopamine 2 receptors is observed. In off-drug, late-stage Parkinson's disease patients. Off-drug. Parkinson's disease patients are deficient in dopamine. Why is that important? So if you starve these receptors, right, they're deficient in dopamine, their receptors are getting starved, the receptors upregulate because they're not being supplemented with exogenous dopamine. So they have a deficiency in dopamine, it's not getting supplemented, and in result, their dopamine 2 receptors are upregulated because they have a deficiency of dopamine. What if you self-induce that deficiency? What if you get rid of all the negative things that give you dopamine? Your receptors are going to upregulate. Right, so why am I making this video? I see a lot of people in society, especially in the West, especially in America where I live, they're really depressed, nothing gives them pleasure, they're always partaking in activities that spike dopamine, it spikes opioids, endorphins, and they don't understand why it's so hard for them to find motivation and to find drive and passion for something. Well, the reason for that is because they fried the receptors that make it possible to feel these emotions. And it kind of angers me because the reason why people get to this point is because the people who really run this country, the elite, the heads of these massive billion-dollar, trillion-dollar corporations that actually run the government, that buy the politicians, they want these receptors down-regulated so everybody's chasing the next high because they can't stand being normal. They have to have the next high. They have to, everything has to be to the extreme. So, oh, here's the newest, baddest product on the market that's going to spike dopamine more than the last one, and people are going to itch for it because, well, the previous product they had ain't doing it for them anymore. The receptors are downregulated from that, so they got to raise the dopamine even more. So I really hate how they're doing this to the people. Another reason is Big Pharma. Big Pharma is giving out all these drugs. Oh, here's Adderall, here's Wellbutrin, here's Seroquel, right? All these Trinalex, here's all these medications to help with your declining mental health, when all it's going to do is just downregulate these receptors even more. So you got to keep raising the dose. I'm sure a lot of people watching this videos, they've been down that rabbit hole. They're going down that rabbit hole. Their medications work. Most of the time antidepressants don't even work, by the way, but maybe it works, and you have to keep raising the dose to get the same antidepressant effect, or Adderall to get the same stimulating effect, because it's just downregulating your receptors. And guess what these pharmaceutical companies are doing? Oh, fuck yeah, we're downregulating these receptors. They're going to be even more reliant on us. They're going to raise the dose and pay even more money for these medications. All our doctors are going to keep getting paid because we're just frying these guys' brains, and they're going to keep coming back to us. Well, no, that's fucking bullshit. And nobody knows the way this actually works, that the way I just explained it. If you understand, whenever you engage in these activities or these drugs that downregulate your receptors, if you just lay off of it, your brain's going to get back to the way it was before. And you're not going to have to rely on these drugs anymore. And these pharmaceutical companies, especially the mental health ones, are fucked. Because now you feel good. Now you know their drugs are doing you more harm than good. And they're going to start losing money. And guess what? That makes me happy. That's all I want from making this video. I'm not making money off this video. There's no affiliate links in the description. I have no benefit making this video, but I kind of want to get back at the big man, you know, the ones that control this shit. And I fucking hate these pharmaceutical companies that are destroying lives, destroying people's brains, frying these receptors just to make people more reliant on them and more reliant on raising the dose just so they could charge more. It's bullshit. Easiest takeaway from this video you can have to really help you understand what I've just said. Dopamine transmission goes up, sensitivity to dopamine goes down. And it's the same for opioid receptors, by the way. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, this is the first video I've ever recorded. I'm not very comfortable in front of the camera, so if it was awkward or I seemed animated, just please cut me a break. I promise I'm not like animated, I'm just really dramatic. That's just my personality. I was actually recording this video trying to not be so dramatic and trying to be more direct and professional, and I had a button-up shirt, and I just kept doing take after take after take for hours, and I was like, dude, this shit ain't gonna work. So I'm just gonna be normal. If you don't like the cussing, if you don't like the how I'm dramatic, just don't watch my videos. If you want to add anything to this video, please feel free so in the comment section below. You know, if there's any other articles like the ones I showed you that you think would be helpful to the other people and myself, please put those in the comment section below. I'm planning on posting more shit that you can actually apply to your life, and stuff that makes sense, like this video here. Stuff that's actually gonna work, stuff that you're gonna understand, because I don't like to propose ideas in a complicated way. I like to make it simple. Like, I really oversimplified this, but in a way where if you do what I say, you're gonna fix your problems. So yeah, that's it, guys.